The entire police station froze the second the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Phone stopped ringing. Coffee cups paused halfway to mouths. Even the rookie officer near the front desk quietly whispered, "Oh no." Because the woman they had just slammed against a patrol car wasn't a criminal. She wasn't a suspect, and she definitely wasn't who these officers thought she was. She was their new commanding captain. The worst part? Nobody rallied, but the worst part? Nobody realized it yet. Rain hammered the streets of downtown Baltimore as unmarked police vehicles crowded outside the district station. Officers rushed through the storm, preparing for a major press conference scheduled later that morning. Rumors about a new captain had spread across the department for weeks. Nobody seemed excited. Especially Sergeant Rick Donovan. 23 years on the force had convinced Rick he already knew everything about leadership. He hated outsiders, hated reform policies, hated administrators who arrived promising change. And according to gossip, the new captain fit exactly that description. Young, educated, transferred from internal affairs. Rick laughed while sipping stale coffee near the entrance. "They're sending another politician with a badge," he muttered to nearby officers. Probably never chased a real suspect in their life. A few officers chuckled. Then the station doors opened. A black woman stepped inside wearing a gray coat soaked from rain. She carried a leather folder under one arm and moved calmly despite the chaos surrounding her. Nobody greeted her. Nobody asked if she needed help. Most barely looked at her twice. To them, she looked like another civilian wandering into the station at the wrong time. The woman approached the front desk politely. "Excuse me," she said. "Could someone direct me to the briefing room?" The desk officer barely glanced up from his computer. "Family assistance office is across the street." "I'm not here for assistance." "Then what are you here for?" Before she could answer, shouting erupted outside. Two officers dragged a handcuffed suspect toward the entrance, while reporters crowded nearby trying to film everything. In the confusion, another officer accidentally slammed into the woman, knocking her folder onto the wet floor. Papers scattered everywhere. She bent quickly to collect them, but Sergeant Donovan walked over already irritated. You can't stand around blocking the entrance. I was just trying to, then try somewhere else." His tone carried the sharp arrogance of someone used to controlling rooms through intimidation alone. The woman slowly stood. "I'm looking for the briefing room," she repeated calmly. Rick noticed the expensive folder in her hand and smirked. "Oh, let me guess," he said loudly enough for nearby officers to hear. "Another activist coming to lecture cops?" Several officers laughed quietly. The woman's expression tightened slightly, but she remained composed. "I'm here for work." Rick folded his arms. "Doing what?" Before she could answer, another officer suddenly shouted from outside. "We've got a possible theft suspect near the parking lot." Everyone turned instinctively. A store owner across the street pointed frantically toward a dark sedan parked near the station. Apparently someone reported seeing a woman matching the suspect's description entering the vehicle moments earlier. The descriptions were vague. Dark coat, black. That was enough for the tension inside the station to rise instantly. Rick looked directly at the woman standing near the desk. "You drove here or?" "Black," said. Rick's eyes narrowed immediately. Convenient, the woman blinked in disbelief. "Excuse me? Mind showing some identification?" Her jaw tightened. Of course. She reached toward her coat pocket slowly, but another officer misunderstood the movement. "Hands where I can see them." Within seconds, chaos exploded. An officer grabbed her wrist. Another shoved her against the patrol car outside the station doors. Rain soaked everyone instantly while reporters nearby began filming aggressively. "What is this?" the woman demanded sharply. "Stop resisting." "I'm not resisting." The leather folder dropped into a puddle as handcuffs snapped around her wrists. Pedestrians stopped walking. From fool. Camera zoomed closer, and inside the station lobby, a young receptionist suddenly looked down at the soaked papers scattered across the floor. One document carried an official city seal. Another displayed a bold printed title, Captain Monica Graham, District Commander, Transfer Authorization. The receptionist's face turned completely pale. Outside, Monica struggled to stay calm while officers searched her car. Rain dripped down her face as reporters whispered excitedly nearby. Rick Donovan stood confidently beside the patrol vehicle, convinced he had prevented a possible threat near the station. "You people always act offended when police do their jobs," he muttered. Monica stared directly at him. "You people?" Rick opened his mouth to respond. Then the station doors burst open. "Take those cuffs off her right now." The receptionist sprinted through the rain, holding the soaked transfer papers above her head. Every officer froze. She roared in confusion. "She's the patent or award on 1919 Assassin Award." Rick frowned in confusion. "She's the new captain." Silence. Complete silence. The words hit like thunder. One officer immediately stepped backward. Another released Monica's arm so quickly he nearly slipped on the pavement. Rick's confidence vanished instantly. "What?" he whispered. The receptionist held out the papers with shaking hands. "Captain Monica Graham transferred from Internal Affairs this morning. She's replacing Commander Ellis." The rain suddenly felt heavier. Porters lifted cameras higher, sensing disaster unfolding live. And standing there in soaked clothes with handcuffs around her wrists, Monica Graham looked directly at the officers who humiliated her before learning her title. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, Monica broke the silence herself. "Are you waiting for an invitation book?" she funnied. Finally, Monica broke the silence herself. "Are you waiting for an invitation?" she asked coldly. "Remove them." The cuffs came off immediately. Rick Donovan couldn't even meet her eyes. "Couture for Dommerfall, too." Monica rubbed her wrist slowly, breathing carefully through the humiliation burning inside her chest. Years in law enforcement had prepared her for hostility, but not this, not on her first day. And definitely not in front of cameras. One reporter shouted questions from the sidewalk. "Captain Graham, do you believe racial profiling played a role?" Another yelled louder. "Will officers be disciplined?" Rick's face tightened instantly. This wasn't just embarrassing anymore. This could destroy careers. Monica picked up her soaked folder from the puddle without answering reporters immediately. Water dripped from official documents while officers stood frozen around her. Then she looked at Rick. "What was the evidence against me, Sergeant?" Rick swallowed hard. "We received a suspect description." "What description?" "Female suspect. Black sedan, with reach remoral fultimum wall." "Black sedan, dark coat." Monica waited. "That's it?" she asked quietly. Nobody answered. The silence exposed everything more brutally than words ever could. Inside the station briefing room, 30 minutes later, tension filled every corner. Officers avoided eye contact while Monica stood at the front reviewing personnel files calmly. She had changed into a spare uniform from her luggage, but faint red marks still circled her wrists. Nobody could stop staring at them. Rick sat stiffly near the back wall. For the first time in 20 years, he looked nervous inside his own station. Monica finally closed the file in her hands. "You know what bothers me most?" she said evenly. Nobody dared respond. "It's not the handcuffs." Her voice stayed calm, controlled, dangerous. "It's how comfortable everyone became the second assumptions entered the room." Several officers lowered their heads. "You didn't investigate first. You didn't ask questions first. You reacted first." The room remained silent except for distant thunder outside. Monica stepped slowly across the room. "I spent 15 years working narcotics, homicide, and internal affairs. I've been shot at twice. I've notified mothers their children weren't coming home." She paused. "And yet somehow, the moment I walked through these doors, some of you only saw a suspicious black woman." Rick's jaw tightened painfully. Because every word was true. Because every hard word or farka word was true. "Shh." Monica turned toward him directly. "Sergeant Donovan." He stood immediately. "Yes, Captain. You've fetched formal for one ball for intausuramo. You've supervised this station's field training for 6 years?" "Yes." "Then explain why your officers escalated force before confirming identity." Rick hesitated. "There was confusion." "No," Monica corrected sharply. "There was bias disguised as urgency." The sentence sliced through the room. Nobody defended him, because nobody could. Monica took a slow breath before continuing. "I'm not here to destroy careers. I'm here to rebuild standards." She looked around carefully at every officer present. "And if any of you believe respect only belongs to certain people, transfer requests are available immediately." Nobody moved. Outside the station, clips of Monica's arrest had already exploded across social media. News anchors replayed footage repeatedly while community leaders demanded accountability. The city erupted within hours. By evening, protesters gathered outside the station carrying signs about police misconduct and racial profiling. Mayor Cynthia Warren arrived inside Monica's office. She stared quietly out the window at flashing cameras below. "Boop cameras. Ooh. You inherited a disaster," the mayor admitted carefully. Monica folded her arms. "No," she replied softly. "I inherited honesty." The mayor continued watching protesters outside. This department didn't suddenly develop problems today. Today was simply the first time cameras caught people behaving naturally. Downstairs, Rick Donovan sat alone in the locker room staring at his reflection. For years he convinced himself experience made him right automatically, but replaying the scene outside haunted him now. The assumptions, the tone, the certainty. He remembered Monica asking calmly for directions while officers dismissed her instantly. And worst of all, he remembered saying "you people." Shame settled heavily in his chest, not because Monica became captain, because deep down, he realized he might have treated her differently if she looked different walking through those doors. That realization terrified him more than suspension ever could. Late that night, Monica walked through the nearly empty station reviewing reports alone. Most officers avoided her all day. Some from embarrassment, others from resentment. She expected both. As she entered the evidence hallway, footsteps approached quietly behind her. "Rick Donovan, I owe you an apology," he said carefully. Monica stopped walking but didn't turn immediately. "I've heard apologies before, Sergeant. This one's real." She finally faced him. Rick looked as exhausted, now older somehow. "I spent my whole career believing experience made me fair," he admitted quietly. "Today proved otherwise." Monica studied him silently. "I humiliated you before even learning your name," he continued. "That's on me." For several long seconds, neither spoke. Finally, Monica answered softly. "Accountability means more when nobody forces it out of you." Rick nodded slowly. "I understand." Then Monica surprised him. "Good," she said, "because tomorrow morning you're helping me retrain this entire department." Rick blinked. "You still trust me to help?" Monica's expression remained firm. "No, but leadership isn't about comfort. It's about correction." For the first time all day, Rick gave a small, honest nod. Morting breeds. Outside, protesters still filled the streets while cameras flashed endlessly against the night sky. But inside the station, something important had finally begun. Not revenge, not public humiliation. And sometimes the people who expose a broken system aren't outsiders, trying to tear it down. Sometimes they're the leaders strong enough to walk straight into the damage, wearing handcuffs on their wag. Their very first day.